Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are back for another weekly edition of our Mora Medical live stream. My name is Dr. Rock. That's spelled R-A-K, pronounced R-O-C-K. And I am a lifestyle medicine physician with Mora Medical. I'm joined with my wonderful colleague, Christina Lascano. Christina, how are you?
Doing well. Thank
I believe
you
you
for
told me you
asking.
just
How are you today, Dr. Rock?
I'm really good, thanks. You told me you just had a visit with one of our members, our patients, and here we are now. We're here every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are Mora Medical. You can find us at mora.com, Mora.com. Thank you to everyone watching. If you're watching live, if you're watching this recorded, we have many people who I know stream this after the fact and even listen to this as a podcast. So we thank you, and please share our website, share our stream, so that others can find out about this service. We're here for you to help you make lifestyle changes to treat, prevent, even reverse your chronic diseases, to help you lose weight, to help you live your healthiest and most fulfilling life. And as always, I'm here with a topic this week. This week, Christina, I thought we would talk about calling it best laid plans, and what we do when we can't do the thing that we plan to do, and kind of how we pivot. So I'll open it up to you. What comes to mind when I say that?
I guess what comes to mind first is usually I try to meal plan and meal prep on Sundays so that I'm prepared for at least the first half of the week with
Hmm.
meals, because that just makes it easier for my husband and I to have things already prepared and ready. But there's times when that doesn't happen, right? We maybe go out of town for the weekend, or maybe we had visitors and we didn't get to the grocery store, and then it makes the week a little bit more difficult. But sometimes, so I think that would be like the example that comes to mind first. And I hear that from patients a lot. If I don't meal prep and like get my week ready right on Sunday, sometimes it just, I've heard that from patients. Oh, the week is
That's right.
lost, and that I don't get back
The
on
week
track
is
till
lost.
Tuesday or Wednesday. So yeah, I think this is a fantastic topic for us to discuss.
Awesome. Yeah, that I think you highlight something really important, which is one, there are certain things we can do ideally to try and avoid situations where we're not able to kind of value our health, or make decisions based on our health. But I'll back up and say actually that word, decisions, choices, because I think in lifestyle related topics, we often talk about habits, right? We say, oh, you need good habits. And like meal prepping could certainly be a very good habits. And I often tell my patients that, I tell myself this, that habits are great, they're wonderful. And so many things can't necessarily be habits, especially when it comes to like our eating and our movement, just because the context is changing a lot, right? Like you mentioned, you might go on a trip on the weekend, you might go on a vacation, you might have somebody come into town, your children might be sick. Like there are any number of things on any given day where the context of how you're doing that habit, like flossing your teeth, the context doesn't change usually, right? I go in the bathroom in the morning, I brush my teeth, I floss my teeth, fine, habit, right? But as soon as the day starts, there's this whirlwind, right, of things that sort of unleash. So is that resonate with you at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, we're all human, right? So uh, there's definitely days where I'll have like a plan for myself, and yeah, it goes out the window.
That's right.
And having to kind of reassess partway through the day sometimes, I think is helpful for me. Okay, the day didn't go, how I anticipated it. How can I make the most of the time I have remaining in this day? And there's always going to be, I think with that, I always have to realize, because sometimes I've done it before where I've made a mistake and still try to do all the things that I still planned, even though the day is gone. someone's sick, or you have something extra to do that you didn't anticipate, your car breaks down, right? And then I've done this before where I still try to pack all those things in that I had planned, and then it usually doesn't work, and then something gets pushed to the next day. So I think recognizing that halfway through the day and just saying, okay, you know what,
Can't do everything.
I can't do it all, so let me prioritize, and prioritizing is important at that point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're getting at something that I wanted to kind of bring up, which is this idea of value-based choices, or the kind of the role in values and decision making. Is that something, Christina, you're sort of familiar with, or you talk about with patients?
I know it's something that we talked with one of our groups together about, but I'd love for you to kind of explain it to the
Sure.
audience.
Yeah. So, and I go back to the word choice, right? Because just like the day you described, where like, something comes up in the morning unexpectedly, and then you look at like, okay, I can't go to the gym, or I could go to the gym, but then I can't make dinner, or, and suddenly like there's all these like kind of trade-offs, right? You're sort of asking yourself, well, and I think in those situations, what people default to then is all or nothing thinking, right? So they look at, oh, okay, I can't go to the gym, so I guess I'm not going to exercise today, or I can't make dinner, so I guess we're going to order, whatever, Thai food tonight. And that, and that might be the right choice depending on your constraints, but I want to, that's where I think you can inject this moment of awareness, where you can pause and you can say, okay, I was going to spend, 90 minutes driving to the gym, spending an hour there and driving back. I can't do that anymore. I don't have 90 minutes. I have 30 minutes. What could I do in 30 minutes to move my body? If my value is that I want to move my body every day because it feels good to me and it aligns with my health goals, what could I do in 30 minutes? And that might be like going for a brisk walk outside, or it might be, 10 minutes of push-ups and squats like 3 times in the day in between some of the other tasks I have to complete. So you haven't given up on the goal of getting some movement in the day. You've just made a choice. And I think I've told you about this before. I mentioned in our group is this woman, this researcher, Dr. Michelle Seeger. She has a book called The Joy Choice, where she says in that moment that you make the perfect imperfect decision. You make the perfect imperfect decision. I apologize if you hear my dog barking in the background. Yeah. So can you think of how you've had to sort of pivot in that way, Christina? Have there been times recently where you're sort of like, okay, I can't do X, but I'm still going to do Y?
Yeah, no, that's a really I love this topic too, by the way. I think it's fantastic, because I, first of all, just agree that, habits, yes, if ideal world, if everything were to go right, you can stick to them. But yeah, I think this is so important. An example, I would say recently we moved, and so it's been a little bit hectic with, the move, and our kitchen wasn't really like put together for a little while. And I had a choice, do we eat out? Because I didn't know, my husband and my parents were like, well, let's just go grab something. It's like, well, we actually have, some beans, and I have the rice cooker here, even though we don't have all of our pots and pans unpacked yet, like we have a few things. And so I made a choice in that moment. Like, it's actually going to take us longer probably to go out and get something. I'll just make this quick beans and rice. And I think I have some frozen veggies, in the freezer that we brought over from the house. And so I quickly made us something all delicious and plant-based, but it was super easy, and it was with the constraints that I had. So that would be an
That's a great example.
of something. I probably would have been able to make something way more tasty, or, something a little bit more exciting. But that tends to be like my go-to if
Yeah.
I have run out of time to make like a meal that maybe I really wanted, I will go towards the beans and rice and veggies. That's kind of my go-to if I've run out of time. So I would say that's an example for me recently.
I love that because you're well, one, yeah, in that moment, other people were saying, "Why don't we just go get food?" Because that's just the like easiest thing people can think of. Like, oh, it doesn't require us to do anything other than like go to a place and say what we want. And you, in your wisdom, were sort of like, well, it's going to cost more. It's actually going to take more time, and we're not going to feel good eating that food. And I love that you sort of, and probably you've done this before, is there's like this go-to backup plan where you're like, oh, no, actually, I've been in situations where I don't have a lot of time and I can actually put something together pretty quickly. It's not going to be the most gourmet or fanciest home cooked meal, and nor does it need to be, right? It needs to be tasty and quick and convenient. That's great. I think this often food is one of the places where this often comes up, right? Because people are, especially now, I know there's a lot of graduation parties people are going to. There's a lot of celebrations that happen. People get married often over the summer, and in doing that, that's going to throw off your routine. You're going to be in a situation where it's like, I was at a birthday party, like I go to birthday parties with my kids, right? And sometimes I try to eat before, but the idea of values is health is not our only value, right? Like we have other values too. We have values of wanting to have connection and relatedness. We have values of wanting to like not make the host feel bad if they've made something. And so I, in that situation, was like, okay, well, let me look and see what can I have. And everyone else, all the other parents were like grabbing plates of food. We were at an arcade, and it was standard kid fare, right? It was like chicken tenders and things I don't eat really anymore. So, and I didn't want to be honest. I mean, I didn't want to be the one guy who was just like, no, I'm not eating. I'm not eating. I mean, they had fruit, right? So I was like, okay, I can take a lot of fruit. So I did that. And then they had French fries, which, if I'm being honest, like I enjoy French fries once in a while. And in that moment, I didn't take a lot of them, but it satisfied that value of like occasionally wanting to indulge a little bit and also wanting to sort of not be the odd man out. I was sitting with a bunch of the other parents who were eating a lot of the other food, and I just didn't want to be completely. And so it wasn't that I was eating something that I never eat. Like once in a while, I eat some fries. My daughter even came over. She said, "You're eating fries?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm eating fries." But she's like, "Oh yeah, you didn't take that many." Like, stop talking.
Calling
I,
you
I eat fries sometimes. Um, but in that moment, I paused and I said, okay, what am I going to do in this situation? Am I going to eat nothing? No. Am I going to just eat fruit? No. It was that. So I think when you go to like a barbecue or a picnic, like there's a tendency to think like, oh, I just have to eat this food. Like there's no other choice. Or you don't eat it, and then the whole time you're just feeling like miserable. You're like, oh, everyone else is eating, everyone else is having a good time, right? Is there a perfect, imperfect choice in that situation where you honor your desire to maybe try a little bit of the food that's being offered, and also maybe load up on something like if they have veggies, if they have fruit, like loading up on that? Then you're going to feel so much more satisfied with your choice because you won't be hungry, you won't feel deprived, and you'll know that the bulk of what you ate was food that's in alignment with your health value. So
And I would also echo to that. I think, you know, if we do go to an event and we maybe don't bring something that we can eat,
that's right.
maybe we don't have time. I think it's a fantastic idea to at least look at what are the best options available to you in that moment and then make a decision. because you kind of hit on something I thought was important. If we decide to not eat anything and we're super hungry, by the time the party's over, we might feel, first of all, like we didn't fit in, right? We like a little bit,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, there's like that lack of like connection with everyone, just a little bit, right? Because it's a communal thing to be
That's
sitting
right.
around eating. And then you also feel like maybe you were hungry and deprived yourself. I mean, it's common then to go home and then and then eat something when you get home that maybe isn't on your plan,
Right.
because you felt so like deprived that you felt like
Deprived.
you needed to do something as
Yeah.
soon as you get home, or you drove home and passed some place and you got something out. So I think it's important to make the decisions, like you're saying, in those moments of the best next step or the best choice in this moment. And
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah. I had a patient recently just to echo that. Like I had a patient recently, she shared with me this experience. I think it was over Mother's Day. So, right, it was probably a couple months ago. It was Mother's Day, and they had a brunch at their home, and people brought like pies and cakes. And she said, everyone kept offering it to me. Everyone kept offering pie and cake to me. And I said, no, I said, no, I said, no, I said, no. And then after they left, she kind of just went overboard. She was like, I had like 2 pieces of pie and 2 pieces of cake. Like, it was just what you said. She was like, I was just restricting myself. And then she felt so guilty about it. She was like, because she said, I feel like I'm a person of my word. She felt like in that moment when she then, after everyone left and she started eating all those things, she felt this guilt and shame. And so we talked about that too. I know you talk a lot about self-compassion. And in that moment, that was definitely what she needed, was self-compassion. And then we talked about how she might have approached that situation differently. Might she have had a small piece of one of the desserts? And in doing that, she would have satisfied her desire to actually have some. She had a desire to have some. And the questions and all the kind of people coming up to her and saying, you got to have this, you got to have this. Oh, how are you not having this? How are you not having this? Now, that's not the best reason to have something when people are kind of pestering you. I agree. I say that's accommodation. But, I go back to what ended up happening. Well, it turns out she actually, part of her really wanted some of that. And she was, she was like, no, I have to be good. Right. That's what she was telling herself. I have to live up to this kind of standard. That's right. Okay, I just want to pause for a moment, remind everyone listening, we're Mora Medical, we're a lifestyle medicine medical practice. We're operating in multiple states. You can visit our website, mora.com. We accept insurance, and we're here to serve you. Unlike traditional medicine, we are really focused on the root cause of health and disease and helping you get to the bottom of it and really change your behaviors for the better. And that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about how do you make the best choices that align with your values when the ideal choice isn't, or the ideal habit or situation isn't possible. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so Christina, what about when you're sort of working with patients and this does come up and people say like, I couldn't do the kind of the all or nothing thinking, right? I want to get into that a little bit. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why people fall into this trap, is because they say, oh, I couldn't do X, Y, or Z. I couldn't meal prep. So this week has just been kind of a free for all. Like, you couldn't meal prep because of the move. Like, what are some strategies you've employed to sort of to make the week go better?
Yeah, well, I guess there's two questions there. So one, how do I handle that when patients ask? And then what did I do personally?
Yeah.
So um, I would say I'll start with my personal example. So when we moved, that was a weekend my parents were helping us. I ended up making enough beans and rice that it was that was just an example of food, but I made like a cup. I doubled everything, so there was enough that I stuck it in the refrigerator, and then we were able to have it for dinner that night as well. So when even if it is like an easy meal, I try to still double it. You know, if I'm going to make some brown rice, I'll make, you know, a few cups of brown rice because it does take a little bit of time. Um, and then throughout the week, I mean, I just tried to make super easy things. There was a few, yeah, I also had to make some decisions, right? I didn't have time necessarily to make my own hummus that week.
Mm,
So I bought hummus out and it had a little bit of oil in it. I had a hard time finding one at the grocery store that I was able to get to because it was right down the street. It's not the normal grocery store I go to. But it was like, okay, this is the best choice that's here. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get some pre-chopped up vegetables so that I have something to snack on, and that I have some extra, you know, to eat throughout the day. So, you know, I tried to do things like that where it was like, okay, this is the best decision. This is the best I can do it in with the constraints that I have in this moment. And then for patients, I would say, I hear it a lot in regards to like movement too, all or
mm,
nothing thinking, where it's like, well, if I didn't get to the gym this week, um, you know, they'll say that. I'll say, I didn't get to the gym this week, but I did, you know, go up and down the stairs of my apartment
okay.
complex a few times. And they feel like they're defeated saying, you know, I didn't go to the gym. So, but, you know, I try to highlight, yes, well, you walked up and down the stairs a few times. You maybe walked around the block. I mean, that's movement.
That's
Maybe
right.
you did the lawn and that's movement. So encouraging people to try to find movement throughout their day. I think you mentioned this earlier, right? If you don't have time necessarily to drive all the way to the gym, go work out for an hour and then drive home, what can you do
Mm,
throughout the day? It could be just doing some squats like in between a meeting, or it could be, you know, getting up and going to the bathroom farther away in the house than the one that's right next to your home office. Or if you work in a clinic or an office somewhere, walk to the farther away bathroom. That way you're just getting a little bit more movement. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. All those little things that you can do throughout the day, because it doesn't have to be, you know, this I'm going to exercise for 30 minutes. I mean, ideally for cardiovascular health, trying to do some aerobics, yes. But movement just throughout the day too is super
movement
important.
throughout the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when I hear all or nothing thinking, first I call it out, right? I say, okay, that is, I don't say it to my patients this way, but it's a cognitive distortion, right? It's like
Yeah.
you've set yourself up where you think there's only one, you know, option A or is doing the ideal choice and option B is doing nothing.
Right.
So first I then bring it back to making a choice. And then I talk about this idea of having a flexible mindset or just the importance of flexibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's the flexibility piece that I think is such a powerful skill, right? It's the power of and instead of but, it's and. I can enjoy a piece of cake and still be committed to my health goals. And this, I think, acknowledges that, well, health goals are complex and there's a nuance of real life, right? And so rather than aiming for perfection, you know, what is my goal? You know, if my goal is to go to the gym for an hour every day, then and I can't do that, then I'm not going to do it. But if my goal is to get some movement in every day and my top choice is to go to the gym, but if I can't do that, what's choice B, choice C, choice D, right? And it reminds me
Mm-hmm.
of your beans and rice example, just like having some backups, having some like imperfect options um, in your back pocket, just and then allowing those to sort of fill in in a flexible way, right?
I love that. I don't think I've ever thought about it that way. But having like your goal be, you know, just movement, of course, I've thought of that way. But then what from that, then you have this like if you could kind of almost visualize like a little diagram. Okay, what are my A, B, and C choices? Okay, what is my D, E, right, choice, right? If A, B, and C don't happen, you could have like your number 1, 2 choice. I think that's a really good way to think about it. I like
That's
that a
right.
lot.
That's right. And then, like, we always talk about this at Mora, but I think it's so important. When you do make a good choice, when you make a choice that's in alignment with your values, even if it's especially when it's the imperfect choice, given the situation you have, you celebrate it, right? You recognize it and you say, wow, go me. Like, I couldn't get my 90-minute workout in today, and I got 30 minutes of some movement in, or I took the stairs like all day today. I didn't take the elevator once, like, or I parked really far in the parking garage. Like, whatever it was that you did, this, I think, fosters that sense of progress and motivation. And then you sort of look at like, oh, what else can I do? Like, where else can I inject my flexible thinking? And there's nothing I can't do, right?
I like that a lot. And perfection is the opposite of what we want, right? We really, no one's perfect. Nothing in life is ever going to be perfect. And so if we are striving for perfection constantly, it's we're going to be disappointed. And so I love that it's like this idea of focus on, okay, my goal is this, but it's okay if these other things, you know, my second or third choice happens, or even my fifth or sixth choice happens, maybe at the end of the day, looking back, that could be like a good thing to add into your day, maybe before you go to bed or while you're brushing your teeth or something, just to reflect on your day too, as you get started with this kind of new mindset. And I can imagine that being helpful for me. So I'm saying this, like reflecting on the day and saying, okay, what did go well? Like what was imperfectly, you know, what went in, how did you say that?
Oh,
What was
the imperfect perfect choice.
what was my imperfect perfect choice today?
Yeah.
And maybe I had multiple of those. Probably we have multiple throughout the day, and then recognizing those. I think that would be a good reflection too of the day.
Oh, I love that. I love the idea of like looking back at the day and just recognizing the choices you made and how you sort of navigated the things that came up. That's right. That's going to cultivate more of a flexible mindset going forward. I always think of like I heard this once and I love it. It's like a shower example. It's like, let's say my day was so busy and I didn't get to shower today. Like, my response then tomorrow would be like, I'm definitely going to get, if I go 2 days without, like, my family's going to start noticing and that's not going to happen. Right. So sometimes the all or nothing thinking also leads to that. Like, oh, I missed my workout, I guess, or I didn't meal prep this week. I guess this week is just, we're not going to eat healthy this week. Right. But it's like, no, if you missed one day, then you double down on like figuring out how to make it a reality the next day, because it's a value of yours. It's something that's really important. You kind of bird's eye view and say like, when I do this, when I move, when I eat these foods, I feel good, I sleep better, I whatever, and then it becomes something that you intentionally work harder to fit in, even when things are not ideal, especially when things are not ideal.
So I would say the majority of days are not ideal, right? I mean, let's be honest. There's lots of days that are great and perfect and go exactly how we anticipate, but life is life and it's going to throw us curveballs. So I think this is a good way to discuss how can we, make the best decision when those curveballs come.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I love this discussion. I love the just sort of thinking about the importance of value-based choices. It's something like you said, we talked about with one of our groups. I talk about it with my groups when they're sharing their week and kind of what went well, and they'll often share what didn't go well. I will call that out. I'll be like, oh, in this situation, you actually made this really great choice. It wasn't the ideal choice. So when I hear that, I always call it out just to kind of overcome that all or nothing thinking again. And what I would say to our listeners and our viewers is, identify your personal values. This is an opportunity also when we talk about values-based choices, like, what are your values? If your health is your choice, if moving your body every day is your choice, if eating a certain way is a value of yours, if spending time with friends and family is a value of yours, then you'll have a better sense when you're in those moments. When you're in those moments, and you can ideally recognize that, wow, this is a moment of where I need to make a choice, right? Rather than just sort of reacting to the situation, you sort of take a pause and you ask yourself, okay, here I am. I'm at an arcade. There's a buffet in front of me. What am I going to have in this situation? Right. And so if I've already thought about my values in that situation, like of relatedness and all those things, then it becomes something actually that can be fun. In Michelle Seeger's book, she talks about um, playing with the options, playing with them, like sort of getting curious in that moment and playing with the options, kind of having fun with thinking about what can I do in this choice, rather than looking at it as sort of like, um, a punishment or a huge setback. And it's like, oh, I can't go to the gym. Like, woe is me. It's like, okay, I can't go to the gym. Like, what can I do? Like, what can I do? And I think that's where sort of mindfulness comes in as well. Yeah. Oh, okay. And then anyway, I will, thanks. I will we'll end there. I just want everyone to also acknowledge the progress that you are making on your health and fitness journey. And if you need support, and most of us, I would say, need support, you can visit us at mora.com. That is what we are here to do. We have one-on-one visits with our patients, and we also lead weekly groups where you get group support, group accountability. I don't know how many patients, Christina, you could probably echo this, have told me that one of the most powerful things about coming to group every week is that they know there is a group of people that are all aligned with their value of wanting to get better, wanting to improve their health. And when they're thinking about, I have one patient who I'm going to see later today. She always says, like, when I'm thinking about skipping, and she's now come to a point where she loves strength training. She never did it before, and now she loves it. But she says, even that now there are some days where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. And then she thinks, oh, I have my group. What am I going to say? I'm going to say I just didn't feel like it. And then she picks up and gets on with it. So there is a power to that too. I always tell my patients to harness that.
Yeah, the accountability piece there is huge, and that's social connection piece as well, because a lot of people, they don't have a huge community around them of people eating plant-based.
That's
I know I don't.
right.
And so having this connection and the accountability, yeah, is super powerful.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for watching again. If you watched live, if you're watching this streaming, if you're listening to this on our Mora podcast, appreciate you. And we will see you here next time for our weekly live stream. Again, we're every week, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And have a great week, everyone. Christina, it's great to see you as always.
Good to see you. And I want to say one last thing. Someone made a message in the chat about the masterclass. Just to answer your question, Rosemary, that is not only for clients. If you go to our website, you can access it. It's free. So feel free to go ahead and take a look at that, send it to your family, friends. But yeah, it's on the website.
Yeah, that's right. You go to mora.com. Rosemary, thanks for noticing that. And then you go on the menu up top under patients. And we have now 2 master classes. We have a weight loss master class and we have a lifestyle medicine master class. The two are similar. Actually, a lot of the content is the same, but they're just organized differently depending on what your goal. If your goal is more weight loss focused, or if your goal is more chronic disease reversal and achieving good life. So, of course, both of them the emphasis is on achieving good lifestyle habits. So those are free, and please check them out. And thanks again, everyone. We'll see you back here next week.